On this episode of Full Circle, we're joined by a leader who has spent nearly 2 decades shaping people and culture across some of India's most dynamic brands. Nirav Jagad, Chief People Officer at Sugar Cosmetics, is joining us today. From Nykaa and Randstad to lead schools and beyond, Nirav has built a reputation for driving transformational change, fostering innovation, and fostering strong relationships, and delivering impactful people policies and strategies across all organizations that he's been. Nirav, welcome to the Full Circle podcast. It is an absolute honor to have you here. I think the first thing I'd like to pick up is again, taking off from the last conversations we've had about your particular view in terms of mental health. Maybe what we are doing in terms of all the support that's providing is it's questionable in terms of what impact it's having. So I'll leave the floor open to you and let's pick up that conversation and then go deeper.
Yeah. So, nothing different. A lot of audience might think that, oh, इनकी side conversation चल रही है, but all of should appreciate that these things don't happen on the day. There's
Of
always a
course.
bit of a build up, and I've had a great pleasure in having chat with you and Prerna on the sides. So, I
Mm,
think it's very clear, and first of all, language also makes a big difference, right? And I'm sure that you will
mm,
appreciate that. So I am not a big subscriber of the word mental health.
mm,
I rather put it as emotional well-being. All right,
mm,
because at the end of it, it's all the emotions that we're dealing with, and how do we manage our emotions really decide how I feel. And I think the science has evolved now, and it's getting sharper by the day with more and more research coming that all of our health is a homogeneous subject, and it's not to be broken down into multiple parts, which is
correct.
physical health and mental health and spiritual health and financial health and so on and so forth, right? So I really look at this as a monolithic structure, and
Mm,
not various streams that we need to address as professionals. And when I look at people, I see that their ability to contribute has a lot to do with their overall health, and I refer to it as total health, and not a
mm,
physical health or a mental health or spiritual health or financial health. I look at it in totality because all of these are connected in some way or the other. you
mm,
know it'll be very surprising to know that somebody has a financial stress back at home and is
mm,
completely productive at work, or if
correct.
somebody is running temperature and be completely productive at work, or somebody is not feeling emotionally well at that point in time and is completely productive at work, right? So when we know that the symptom is the same, why do we go back into the root cause and try to create various assumptions on what the root cause could be? uh, we may not understand the interlinkages right now, but does not mean that they are not
Correct.
interlinked. And
Mm,
as professionals, we need to make that effort to see that interlinkage, and work on it, because at the end of it, we are responsible for the people who work in our organizations. We have a direct responsibility on how they feel about every day coming to work and working back at
mm,
home. You may not be able to control their personal lives, but what I can control
mm,
is the 9, 10 hours or 8 hours, whatever that person is giving at work. In our control, we should try to make it as conducive for the individual to be at in that environment, right? Which means freed
got
up
it.
from all the unwanted stresses and so on and so forth. Yeah. So
Got it. Got it.
I think it's, just to pointedly answer your question on that one, is that it's emotional well-being. It's not mental
Mm,
health.
fair enough.
And just like any other health issues, this will go through its ups and downs. And when you do go down, you have paracetamols and antibiotics for physical. We need to figure out what that is, right? And to say that, oh, I'm going to get you to talk to a counselor, may not, maybe as one size fits all solution. I think people have really cut it down to just shoving a paracetamol down your throat, even if you have a very different kind of ailment running through.
Mm.
So we need to really think deeper and ask ourselves that, are we really understanding what exactly is the individual going through?
Got it. So actually, Nirav, you said a bunch of things. Each of them are
Yeah,
worth like a
sorry.
separate pod. No, no, I think that's awesome. Each of them are worth like a separate podcast by themselves. So I'll go almost sequentially, right? So Nirav, you actually believe that as an employer, your responsibility is of the entire team population, their entire health and stuff. Is it because see, there are different perspectives to this. Like earlier, we had a conversation with somebody else where it was more about saying, "Hey, you know what? Your health is your responsibility. I'm responsible to take care of whatever's happening at work," sort of a thing. And we've had another conversation where they said, "No, no. Once you're working with me, then everything you do is, I mean, your life is my responsibility at some sense." I'm a spectator over here, so would love to hear your thoughts. I'll share my thoughts as well. So tell me a little bit more about that, and we can jump into other topics.
All right, so let me just qualify the response by saying there's nothing right or wrong. It's about
Sure.
perspectives.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, and let me share my perspective. My perspective is that
Sure.
I'm a citizen
Mm,
of a certain ecosystem.
mm,
In that ecosystem, I do have a certain responsibility which is bestowed upon me by the virtue of the position that I hold.
correct.
In
Mm,
this position, I do have rights to make decisions that can impact people's lives positively,
mm,
negatively, neutrally.
mm,
Therein lies the discretion, therein lies the choice, right?
mm,
I can just stand back, say, stay neutral and saying, "Bhai, aap apna dekh lo," right?
mm,
This is you come here, you signed up the contract, you want to come here, you want to work, you put in the hard work, you'll get the monies, and the transaction ends there. We
mm,
can take the mandate forward and say that what, while I do understand that we are paying you for it, but it's not so black and white, right? There's an element of gray there where we need to really step in
mm,
and say that what more. And when you talk about that what more, is I say that I'm responsible for not just those 3,000 people who work for me. I'm responsible for all the lives that these 3,000 people touch, which is
correct.
family, friends,
Correct.
and so on and so forth. So
Correct.
every positive human I free up into that ecosystem, I'm giving
Mm,
our society a chance to create a positive ripple.
mm,
Every
mm,
negative individual I let in this ecosystem, I'm giving myself this responsibility that I'm possibly letting out a negative individual out in the society. Now,
fair enough.
nobody's telling me to take this for you, right? I mean,
Mm,
nobody's gonna put a report card to this and say that आपने अच्छा किया,
yeah.
बुरा किया, whatever that is. But the point is that let's understand that impact can be defined from 0 to 100. You
Mm,
choose, right?
mm,
And therein we need to, and this is what I tell my colleagues and my friends as well from the industry, say that you have that opportunity. Why don't we make it happen,
mm,
right? And that's where the problem statement is that I in my role want to create such a positive ecosystem that people enjoy being here.
mm,
They feel good about doing the work they do. They feel good about the people they interact with. They feel good about the skills we are adding to them. They feel good about that the market value has gone up. They feel good about the fact that they are going to be in a better position going forward in their careers. They should feel good about that when they look back at this experience, they should talk about it fondly. They
mm,
should feel good about the fact that their manager cares about them,
mm,
right? Now, when somebody see, I have zero control on their personal lives, right? I mean, I don't go and make those choices.
correct.
Again,
Correct.
controlling the
Correct.
controllables, I will choose what I can influence, and maybe that has a positive impact on their personal lives as well. Because these are all
Mm,
interconnected, we know that, so I'm not going to get into
absolutely.
proving that. But
Mm,
my hope is that somebody who's feeling positive about being at work is in all probability going to be positive in personal lives as well. So yeah,
mm.
that's the
Got it. Got
hypothesis.
it. So I mean, my perspective, and I kind of agree with what you're saying. I've always thought that as leaders of teams or handling the human resource function or any of your roles in that perspective, um, in a way, like you said that very well, right? So it's not just about the 3,000 people that you're employing; it's about their families and one way or the other, the employees and the team needs to feel that, my company has my back, right? If there's a crisis, then there's somebody in the company that I can go to. I mean,
Yeah,
like you can
yeah,
define the extent
yeah.
of that, but I think that's always maybe one place that a lot of founders come from. So, for example, a lot of times founders say that one reason to build a company is to generate positive employment and the kind of lives that I'm affecting just through the company that I'm building, sort of a thing, right? So, I completely agree with you, Nirav, on that. Going again back to the other point that I wanted to pick up in your conversation. As I said, you brought up three different podcast topics. I'm picking up topic number two. You mentioned about paracetamol for emotional well-being. I'd like to kind of dwell a little deeper on that, right? And look, I'll throw something out there and let's kind of break it down and debate and discuss that further. You know, the time when we were growing up, when we were in the early stage of our career, emotional well-being as a term was probably just getting seeded in, right? Like people were I don't even know if people really recognize the importance of it or the meaning of it, sort of a thing. Uh, there is a lot more attention to it right now. Uh,
Yeah.
let's just maybe break it down, saying that was that a better time? Was now a better time? Is the time itself different? Has how the way the approach has changed? Is that positive, negative, detrimental? What is it like? Throw your thoughts on this first.
See, at a macro level, I think as a society
Hmm.
we've degenerated.
Hmm.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
unfortunately, right? I
Hmm.
mean, if I remember my childhood, I didn't have the kind of stresses that my son goes through today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't go through the kind of peer pressure that he's experiencing today. I
Hmm.
don't,
Hmm.
I don't remember I going through the kind of work pressure. And let me just put that for them
Yeah.
also, studies is work, right? So I don't remember I going through that kind of pressure that he's going through today. And generally, when I look around, I think as a society we have degenerated, right? So when you
Hmm.
degenerate as a society, there are a lot of outcomes of that degeneration. Today you will
Hmm.
see that people are very high strung. It's very difficult to
Hmm.
kind of drive on the road and not see two people not fighting on the sides, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's become very common. Smallest of
It's
things
just the world
trigger
we live in.
people off, right? So
Hmm.
it's just unfortunate that we are today living in a more degenerated society where people are very high strung, emotions are running high, people tend to externalize their issues, people think that everybody else is responsible for my state the way I am. What do you do about that, right? I mean, it's not. And
Hmm.
i i I would like to refrain from making a comparison. I invite all my friends also to please not make that reference to say that हमारे टाइम पे तो ऐसा नहीं होता था, आपको क्या दिक्कत है.
Hmm.
Please understand, 20
Hmm.
years we are living in a very different world. So let's not be
That's true.
callous about these statements. We have to just please operate from a point of empathy. Okay, if I were
Hmm.
growing in the times that my son is growing today, I would probably be as high strung. I mean, I don't know. It's just that my upbringing was different. I went through different challenges. I faced it differently. Today the amount of information overload is thrown at children is unbelievable. You don't get time to
That's true.
process it, right? So it's a different world we are living in. So we have to be responsive to the world that we are living in. And in this world, people are feeling emotionally drained because of the so much of amount of negativity, so much of
Hmm.
amount of emotions that people are having to handle. Then we need to find a way to manage it. And my sense is that not everybody can do this in their own way. I mean, people have to find
Yeah.
some perspective, right?
Hmm.
And for that, you cannot find that perspective yourself all the time. You need to get somebody who can give you a very neutral vantage view about what your world is looking like. It's like,
Yeah.
the moment you have like a 1,000 piece jigsaw puzzle, it's always good to get a little higher view on the same jigsaw to solve that jigsaw. If
Hmm.
you're going to be
Hmm.
sitting on the jigsaw, you will never be able to solve it. So it's life is
Hmm.
like that. You are sitting on like a 1,000 piece jigsaw, and you're trying to figure out, and you probably could be sitting on the very solution that you want to find,
True.
but you can't
True.
see
True.
it. But somebody at a 20 feet, 30 feet view will be able to probably spot that and tell you, okay, bhai, look at it differently. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is. It's about perspective. It's about saying, have you considered this?
Hmm.
Have you been better
Right.
than this before? I mean, these are very powerful
Hmm.
questions, right? Have you considered this? Right? What's your perspective about the person who's doing it differently from what you are doing? Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So these are
Hmm.
all questions, and people are very smart. People are self-driven. They'll find solutions. They will fight for it. They'll figure it out. Right? So you don't need to be sitting
Got
there and
it.
spoon feeding them, but you need to take that responsibility. And the people who take this responsibility can have a huge amount of emotional drain on them. They need to care for themselves also.
Oh yes. Yes. Yes.
I do
Yes.
it,
Yes. Yes.
right? So when I
Hmm.
go through it, I do take time. And for me, it's not about going and talking. I just go and meet friends and talk absolutely inane stuff, and that's therapeutic to me. We talk shit,
Hmm.
like just random,
Hmm.
कोई मतलब ही नहीं है. We just go and talk. That's it, and that's therapeutic to me. I'm done. Like my month is solved, right? So people have to find out what is that क्लेंजिंग फॉर देम, फिगर आउट करना चाहिए उनको.
Agreed. So actually, Nirav, like again, a lot of nuggets in this, right? So I think one, being in this world in your formative years can have a very different impact in terms of how you see the
Yeah,
world. Like in your teens, in your early stages of career, so much exposure to social media and all of the other things. And I think even without throwing social media under the bus, it is definitely a very different world that we are living in, right? It's
it
even
is. It is.
work-wise and all
It
of those
is
things.
not
Yeah.
the problem, but it's a part of the problem. Let's just face it
Part of
that
the
way.
problem. I think what's the word for it? It accelerates or it actually elevates the problem to some extent, right? I think that's one thing. One of the things that we kind of focus on in our programs is, and the perspective has always been that look, you have to treat mental health and mental well-being or emotional well-being as the same as physical well-being, right? So just like you go and get a annual health checkup done, you should go and see a GP every year. You should go and get an annual health checkup done. It's good to go and um, have a word with a psychologist once in a while, a mental health professional once, who can actually at least sort of, and exactly the way you put it, right? So it's not, I'm sure you have the jigsaw puzzle in front of you, but somebody else stepping up and looking at that can be super useful for you, especially given the professional exposure that they have, sort
Yeah.
of a thing, right? So I think
No, you're right.
that's absolutely agreeable in that sense. By the way, Nirav, one um, personal question in this
Right.
regard. Do you personally also like what kind of emotional well-being practices that is it that you kind of pick up and do? Like, do you meditate? Do you actually do you have a therapist or a counselor that you go and speak to once in a while, sort of a thing? Tell me a little bit more about that.
I've used four things, and I continue to use
Okay.
them. Um,
Hmm.
I play sport. Sport is my
Okay.
great outlay. I swim, so I
Hmm.
run, I swim, I play cricket, I play volleyball, matlab anything with outdoors, right? So the moment I feel stress, I'm put on my shoes and do what is needed.
Hmm.
I also spend a lot of time with my friends.
Hmm.
And I think, for me, I will call upon them कि यार छोड़ मिलना है तेरे को, अरे आज नहीं
Hmm.
कल, मेरे नहीं आज मिलना है, and they'll make time, they know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And we do it. So
Understandable.
that's the second one. The third is
Hmm.
that I do meditate. I've not been the most disciplined, but I do meditate because I know that some of the answers are in me. Um,
Hmm.
and there's nobody else who's going to do it for me, right? So in that point, and this is not whatever four things I'm saying, they are not exclusive of each other. This could be happening parallel.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no sequence
Right,
to
right.
it. I just do it
Hmm.
as I feel. And I've also spoken with counselors, where I've
Hmm.
sought perspective. And the way I go about in engaging with the counselor is saying that, hey, you know what, this is how I'm thinking, let me know, am I thinking right? So it's not saying, oh, I'm torn, I'm burdened and all that, because see, people are not going to be able to sift through a ton of mess. It's very difficult to delayer this. So people who are seeking that kind of help also need to do some homework before you go and say that, oh,
Hmm.
can you help me think this through? This is what's burdening me down, this is what's nearly dragging me.
Hmm.
Am I really you know asking the right questions of the
Absolutely.
people I should be asking, right? So when the counselor is responding, they have something to specifically respond to. Else, I'm also not going to gain from that chat, and counselor is going to feel that, oh God, I mean, did I really do a good job of it or not, right? So I think my sense is that
Hmm.
whenever I've gone with a very pointed uh, request, I have not been disappointed.
Hmm. Okay, got it, got it, got it. So very similar experience at my end also, Nirav. And by the way, I must tell you, I think meditation has been one of those very powerful tools. I just wish we were more disciplined and we did it on a regular basis. Like a good day is when you kind of exercise a little bit, do like 5 10 minutes of even 5 minutes of meditation can have like such a big impact in terms of um,
Yeah, yeah.
in terms of your day sort of a thing, right? Which of these kind of practices do you bring into the company itself? Tell me a little bit about your journey from that perspective, from a I mean, not only emotional well-being, but in general, overall well-being perspective. Like, how have you looked at it? How has your perspective changed across the companies you've worked with? You worked with some of the best brands in the country, so would love to actually hear about how you've kind of taken it to these companies and how it's kind of panned out.
Yeah. See, whenever I've engaged a counselor, I have oriented the
Hmm.
counselors myself, right? Because
Hmm.
there is unfortunately, there is a bit of a model with which they operate. You know, put the blame on the education system or the corporate structure or whatever, but there is a certain framework within which they operate. And I tell them that,
Hmm.
when you are engaging with my workforce, I would want you to engage with them a little differently and be more asking questions rather than suggesting, and which they normally do. I think they're very, very,
Hmm.
very evolved in that sense. But whenever I've run a program of this
Hmm.
kind, I have directly engaged with all my workforce because I do my conversations also with them. I
Got
have my
it.
people partners who have these conversations with them, and
Hmm.
I work with my people partners directly because they are mini me's, right? So they're going to talk to 200, 300
Got it.
people because you can't be
Hmm.
everywhere, right? So you
Yeah.
influence through a set of people, and when you do that, you have to ensure that you
Hmm.
influence them right. So there are multiple triggers to this. There's no one solution to this. One is counselor. There's a certain orientation that they go through with me. My people partners go through a certain orientation with me. There is a direct engagement that I do with them, and then you run programs, right? So there is something called as a health championship. There is something called as a plankathon, or something called as how many steps you've done in
Hmm.
and then you run a lot of sports events.
Very cool.
Because you make it like an annual event and you make it like
Hmm.
one of the most sought after. You publicize it so much, and then people want to be fit for that, right? So you kind of say that, okay, but, I mean, if you want to play soccer, you got to be fit enough to run for 30 minutes. So people work on it, and I've seen people who actually make effort to be fit, to be part of those sports events, because they want to do well.
Hmm.
So it's not just one. And I'm not making this up, Chaitanya. In those
Hmm.
2 months, whenever I've seen these people um, work out, and probably they were the most disciplined in those 2 months, they have been phenomenally positive.
Of course. I'm
Their
sure.
quality of
Hmm.
conversations are different, their engagements, they are smiling more, they are more prompt on solutions. It's mind blowing how this has worked out. It's
Hmm.
mind blowing. I mean, the same guy on the table to a problem statement was saying, I don't know, yaar, it's not working out. And it's like, why don't we try this? Why don't we try this? Why don't we try this? It's just unbelievable. And I don't know how, why, what science is at play, but I know that I've seen it enough more times to know that it is working. And why is it working? Well,
Got
I'll
it.
probably work out, figure it out somewhere. But there are some researchers out there who will tell me about this. But yeah, it does make a difference.
Hmm. So I think this is where you tie up the whole person well-being, right? Like you do
That's right.
one thing, it kind of triggers in other places. By the way, like there is scientific evidence around this, right? You go for a jog, you do some exercise, that actually endorphins that get released in your body, which makes you more
Yeah,
positive, sort of a thing. And I've
yeah,
seen this consistently, right? So one good thing about like being on the treadmill, for example, is that those 30 minutes, you're just trying to make sure that you complete the 30 minutes. So you don't have any bandwidth to take other stress and all those things. Your brain gets probably a shut off time in that period,
yeah,
sort of a thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah.
Agreed, agreed,
Yeah.
agreed.
Neerav, how do you think, I mean, how do you think the health and well-being landscape or approach in corporates and employers is going to evolve over the next, let's say, decade and a half? How do you see the HR role itself transforming over the next decade and a half? I think there's lots that's happening from an AI perspective, from general workflow, ups and downs, all of those things, right? So how do you, if you had a crystal ball, then how would you actually think the world is going to change, at least in these two aspects, over the next 2 decades?
See, tech and health are going to become the inseparable twins in the future,
Mm,
right? I mean, we're already
mm,
seeing signs. The amount of technological advancements that we are seeing in the medical fraternity is mind-boggling. Like, I mean, I have doctor friends and who tell
mm.
me that, oh, ye ho gaya, ye nahi ho gaya, wo ho gaya. I'm like, dude, this is unbelievable. Like, cataract surgery can be done and the guy's out in 2 hours. I was like, whoa. I mean, I used to
Yeah,
remember,
yeah, yeah.
my relatives used to, walk around with those dark glasses and all that for like a week and all that, right? So, I think
Mm,
tech is already there. Now, what you and I,
mm,
need to talk about is, how is this going to be handled at a symptomatic level? right? Which is a little proactive rather
Hmm.
than reactive. So what the medical
Hmm.
fraternity, which is doctors and all, are doing, they are talking about the curative side of it, right?
Hmm.
What we need to talk about is the preventive side of it, right? So I'm just going to break
Go
down
ahead.
the whole problem into two
Sure.
parts. So um, can I do
Hmm.
that? Yes, I can do it. I can do it. I'm 100% convinced that we can
Hmm.
do this. Now, for that, I just need information. I need data. I need my ability to analyze the data. And for that,
Hmm.
um, there is something called as data privacy in our country. We need to be
Yeah.
very sensitive about that as to what sort of data you are able to gather. We need to find a solution on that
Hmm.
as well, right? Because
Hmm.
people right now see my GP, my surgeon, my hospitalization, all of this is outside the work prerogative, right? That's how
Hmm.
it's always seen.
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
get my blood samples, my organization doesn't need that sample. No, why do they need a report and all that? Now
Hmm.
the concern is that we won't be able to do anything preventive if I don't know where the symptom lies. So I
Hmm.
am today
Correct.
being forced to play blind,
Hmm.
right? So regulatory wise, there needs to be some view or some solution to figure out, saying that can this be made accessible to organization to help solve. Number one,
Hmm.
tech is gonna completely change the way we engage with our workforce, completely,
Hmm.
right? Because I think fundamentally all the mundane tasks are going to be done through technology. We're going to be focused on doing what we call as a higher value chain work, right?
Correct. Hmm.
Now, in that evolved landscape, it's important that people also bring in their A game
Hmm.
regularly, more frequently
Hmm.
rather, right? And in there lies the challenge that people might feel that this is a little high pressure game compared to what I was there playing, but
Hmm.
3 years, 4 years back. How
Yeah.
rapidly this will evolve, I don't know, right? Because
Hmm.
today we are hearing some not so pleasant stories about AI replacing content, AI replacing designers, AI replacing base level lawyers, and so on and so forth. So there's
Hmm.
already some stress in the system. Where this will go to, I'm unable to crystal gaze that. What I
Hmm.
can crystal gaze for sure is that this is a good solution to have on the HR side, right? Because I should look at leveraging this technology to find ways to reach people in the way they want me to reach, to find solutions that are very customized to their requirement. And again, I would rather do this as a total solution than a saying financial or emotional or
Yeah.
physical health. Or I would rather do this as a total solution where I would bring them one well-being offering, saying that this is going to look at everything that you have and let's see what we can do there.
Hmm. So there's actually direct application of AI technology and all those things. And look, given corporates are actually, at least in the insurance landscape, the largest payers of healthcare from that perspective, and a lot of them are very forward looking in that sense. I'm sure a lot of this will get initiated from that direction itself, sort of a thing, right?
Huh.
So
I mean, it
I
should.
couldn't agree
It
more
should.
on that. Yeah. Huh. Hmm.
It should. I mean, today insurance organizations are actually at the back end of the ecosystem, right? Because they're the ones who are
Hmm.
actually basically saying that,
Yeah.
I'm reacting to an incident, I'm paying you the monies that you've
Hmm.
already paid. So they are basically just reacting to it. My point is that
Correct.
these organizations who are, I think they're behemoths, right? I mean, they are large.
Hmm.
Like you talk about
Hmm.
LICs of the world and the New India Insurance Assurance of the world, and then the private players and all that. These are large corporations, right? So what they are
Hmm.
doing is today is that they are probably operating from a risk standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
can we do a different thinking on this and say that can I reduce the risk by being preventive about this than being curative? Now this is thoda alag hai.
Hmm.
It does require a little,
Yeah.
a different way of approaching the same thing, but some of the organizations are doing, right? I mean, some of them are saying that if you show me a positive health report, I will reduce your premium. Now
Correct.
that's
Correct.
a
Correct. Correct.
preventive way out, because how else will you know, right? But then
Hmm.
here when in the technology can come in, and are there more levers than just a physical
Hmm.
report to tell me that this person is actually more focused on health and hence less likely to claim the insurance monies from me. Hence, I should
Hmm.
be in a better position to reduce the premium of this individual, right? So this is one way of is something already there. I'm saying, can we
Hmm.
do more of it? Can we bring in
Hmm.
more solutions like that where we are saying let's talk about the preventive side of it because it's actually a win-win for everybody. Everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mirav, I would actually expect that HRs and corporates will have to take the lead over here, right? Without, I mean, because see, there are multiple benefits for you. You are the payers for insurance, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we know how insurance functions. Today in corporate, it is basically you paid X premium, you had 1.1x claim, so you will pay 1.2x premium. So you're still paying the monies for whatever healthcare expenditures happened. It just happened one day late. So there's a very clear financial incentive for you to focus on preventive health. There is also a very clear workforce incentive. Like from a productivity perspective and all, you'll be the first people to kind of benefit, right? Hopefully, lesser absenteeism, more present, I mean, lesser presenteeism, and so on and so forth, sort of a thing. Are you seeing this actually happening? Like, are you seeing a lot of companies in your HR circles? Are people actually taking preventive health in that vein, in the vein you kind of put it, or is that still something? I mean, tell me what you're observing in the market and among your peers on this.
It's a mix of both, actually. There is a lot of
Hmm.
reactive and there is some proactive as well, right? And
Got it.
again, this is not a judgment, but I think a lot of us are reacting to the limitation of the insurance ecosystem available to us.
Hmm.
If I go to my
Hmm.
insurance partner, how many of them are going to be able to tell me a dashboard? And they're going to tell
Hmm.
me that, Nirav, please give me your BMI report. And we'll do
Hmm.
6 months to 6 months comparison. And the same person has better BMI report will reduce the premium by so much. Just hypothetically
Hmm.
telling you something.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
my solution provider gives me that solution, I'm happy to work on it. But unfortunately, I won't
Yeah.
be able to go back to tell my insurers that, can we do this? Because they don't have that solution. So then I'm
Hmm.
going back to the
Hmm.
conventional way saying that yaar, 110 claim ho gaya to 120 premium ho gaya, and it's a cyclical work. So let's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
reduce
Yeah. Yeah.
ourselves to that. So
Hmm.
while we can bring the ideas, I still need that there's a certain solution out there. Like I mean, Cameron, he had a vision of Avatar, many years back, but he was limited by
Hmm.
technology. So when the technology
Hmm.
was available, he sprung at it and he made the movie. In the same way, there
Fair
could be
enough.
some great ideas out there, which I'm hearing of already, but we are limited by what is available in the market.
Hmm.
So the reason, Chaitanya, I'm talking to you right now is that I'm hoping that people responsible for insurance structures also will listen to this and say that why don't you talk to the stakeholders and get some feedback, get some potential solutions that you can try to work upon,
Yeah.
and don't think of them as unidimensional customers who'll pay you premium.
Hmm. Think beyond that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So by the way, Nirav, I must tell you that I think I mean, we work with the insurers as well very closely. We at least are working with two different insurers where they are talking about exactly the same thing that you're saying, right? Like, what can I do to keep the population healthy so that there are fewer claims that happen, get more involved in their life, sort of a thing. And I know that even the larger insurers, the general insurers who control like whatever 30-40% of the market, also know that this is the direction that they have to head in. So I don't think it will happen overnight, but I think in the next decade, half a decade, sort of a thing, you will see your own insurers behaving very differently, right? They'll
Yeah.
get more involved, which is what happens in a lot of the western part of the more developed part of the world, mature part of the world, sort of a thing, right?
नहीं,
Uh,
हम भी डेवलप्ड ही
yeah.
हैं,
So
चैतन्य. हम भी
हाँ,
डेवलप्ड ही हैं.
developing बोलते हैं sir. Developing is the
See,
term that we usually use, right?
see, we are very developed in the way we want to solve for problems, and I honestly, I mean, I've
Hmm.
worked with fair bit of European counterparts as well. I think the
I'm
solutioning
sure.
mindset that we come with is mind-boggling. That's the reason you are
Hmm.
sitting on in a time zone very different from mine right now.
Hmm. Got it. Actually, so interestingly, like, I mean, and I've seen this across, right? Like, whether in all these other countries, in any case, the thought leaders are coming from our country. So, whatever, we'll figure that out,
I
sort of a
think we
thing.
just need to take
Uh,
pride in what we are, Chaitanya. I think, the
hmm,
times to berate ourselves is gone. I think we need to take pride.
yeah.
We need to be confident. We need to
Hmm,
be assertive. We need to be respectful of everybody who's out there.
hmm,
saying that you're great, I'm great, and we together can do much greater things. Simple as that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
today,
Fair
you
enough.
know, a lot of the solutioning that you and I are talking about in the industry, also we need to have that perspective, saying that there was a certain way of
Mm,
operating, there's a better way to
mm,
operate, let's find it out. I'm happy to listen to you. Unfortunately, Chetan, in so
mm,
many years of my experience, I've not come across a single insurance company who has ever called me and said, "Sir, how do you feel about the product? Is there something we can do about it?" I've not had a single reach out, ever, ever.
mm,
And I just hope that happens
mm,
faster, right? Because we are this intermediary ecosystem
mm,
that is a treasure trove of feedback. And I've not
mm.
heard of any of my friends from the industry also having been reached out to. So it's a missed opportunity so far, at least.
Yeah, yeah. I agree to that actually. I don't know if there's a lack of a solutioning mindset. I mean, you will speak to insurers, but either when there's a claim stuck or when the renewal is due, but not otherwise saying how can we do this better sort of a thing.
I
And they
mean,
are
the transaction,
behemoths
that's a
if they don't get
transaction,
the
right?
feedback.
I mean, that's a
Yeah,
transaction.
yeah,
I'm not talking
yeah.
about transaction. I'm
You're
saying
not going to improve
engagement.
the product with that. Huh.
Yeah,
Correct, correct,
where's the
correct.
engagement? Where is the product development perspective? Where is the new market creation perspective? I
Mm,
mean, all of these are missing, right? You are
mm,
running the old churn and you're continuing happy being चलो यार मेरा year on year premium इतना हो गया मेरे claim settlement ये हो गए. Please tell me which insurance company today is saying that I've created a new revenue stream in the last 10 years.
mm,
Their
mm,
claim to fame today, even today, is saying mere percentage settlement is this much, right? And
mm.
this is including the private players.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
If that's your
Mm,
differentiator, and I hope that in the next 5 years I hear a different pitch to attract new customers, that it should not be a
mm,
percentage claim, right?
mm,
So I'm really hoping that the industry by itself take this upon as a challenge and says that we want to do different things. I'm happy to listen
mm.
to you. Let's talk about this. Let's develop this. I will work on this pro bono with an insurance company that wants to listen to me because I know this is so impactful.
Mm.
I deeply believe in this, but I don't have the ecosystem or the jurisdiction to make the impact that they can make. So at best, I can influence, but I cannot do it for them.
Got it, got it. So for all the insurance companies who are listening to this podcast, you have one of the smartest HR leaders saying that he's ready to give his time pro bono sort of a thing. What better
Please
opportunity
reach
than
out.
this?
Please
But
reach out. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. But Nirav, I think that's more than what I had in mind to discuss. Thank you so much. Yeah, this was like a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate you taking all the
Pleasure.
time and going into these nuances. Every time I talk to you, there is something new that kind of comes out in terms of the conversation, right? Like today we spoke about how proactive preventive healthcare actually is supposed to be something that not just HRs but insurance companies actually start thinking of. My promise to you is
Yeah.
that you'll see this happening over the next 5 years. I know that they're already talking about it as such. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time. This was super amazing.